Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this session, which is to deal with the multipolar crisis, seeking for long-term solutions. And in this context, we discussed the World Investment Forum, which is taking place in October 16 to 20 this year at this place. And to discuss the key issues, challenges, opportunities, and agenda, the way forward. First of all, a few words about the United Nations World Investment Forum. The World Investment Forum is a preeminent global platform for policy debate on investment for development. It's an important gathering of investment development stakeholders worldwide to deal with issues, challenges, and opportunities from the whole holistic approach, which is we call investment chain approach, from the upstream of the financing for sustainable development to the downstream of actual investment, that is including FDI in the countries worldwide. So we have multiple communities that includes capital markets, asset owners, asset managers, that is sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, and private equity funds, to the market intermediaries, such as stock exchanges worldwide, to the downstream when we have the policymakers, investment treaty negotiators, investment promotion agencies, and also multinational companies and SMEs. So this is kind of full spectrum of the investment chain with all the key stakeholders along the investment chain. And as you are aware, there's a multilateral trading system in the world, that is WTO, and the multilateral monetary system, that is IMF, and including World Bank. But there hasn't been a kind of multilateral investment system. The current international investment relations is governed by 3,400 investment treaties concluded at bilateral, regional, sub-regional, and sectorial levels. And for that, it is a multi-layered, multifaceted, highly fragmented investment system, or we call it regime. And UNCTAD has been a de facto secretariat to backstop such a regime, to advocate worldwide reforms of such a regime. In the meantime, we established in 2008 such a World Investment Forum as a kind of a policy-making platform to fill the gap in the international investment regime. Allow me first to show you a brief video that gives you a brief history of the World Investment Forum to start with. The video, please.
Every 2 years since 2008, the UNCTAD World Investment Forum is recognized worldwide as the most important event for the international investment community. The forum offers a unique opportunity to influence investment-related policymaking, shape the global investment environment, and network with global leaders in business and politics. Past editions have attracted up to 4,000 investment stakeholders from 160 countries.
How can we change the investment profile in the world to create a better functioning world economy and a more environmentally sustainable world?
The United Nations is joining forces with governments, philanthropists, and private investors to stimulate sustainable investments at all levels.
There is a necessary role for the private sector. It will not be government alone that will be able to finance these SDGs.
Organized under the overall theme of investing in sustainable development, the 2018 edition will address challenges for international investment in the new era of globalization and industrialization. The week-long forum will feature more than 50 events moderated by leading personalities. The sessions include 2 Global Leaders Investment Summits, a Global Investment Game Changers Summit, ministerial roundtables, conferences, networking events, award ceremonies, and an investment village. The forum also offers a unique setting for bilateral high-level meetings and new partnership opportunities. Achieving the world's Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 will require new investments in the order of $2.5 trillion per year in developing countries alone.
Collaboration and partnership can ensure that investment in sustainable development is inclusive. This forum helps to forge such links.
顺应了世界各国，特别是发展中国家引进跨国投资、促进经济发展的普遍愿望，有利于推动实现联合国千年发展目标。
Everyone has a role to play in extending the benefits of global prosperity. The World Investment Forum provides an essential platform for the international community to do just that.
I was delighted to see at the heart of UNCTAD's action plan to reorientate the financial markets towards truly long-term, sustainable and resilient investment.
UNCTAD invites you to interact with the global networks of investment stakeholders and the international community. Help shape the global dialogue on investment policy making. Find out what 21st century industrialization means. Share the vision of your country on investment for sustainable development. Identify practical solutions and sustainable business opportunities. And forge new partnerships. Investment Forum from 22 to 26 October 2018 at the Palais des Nations in Geneva.
UNCTAD invites you to become part of a growing global community of investors for development.
The 7th edition of the World Investment Forum took place virtually from the 18th to the 22nd of October 2021. The forum is a high-level, multi-stakeholder event designed to facilitate dialogue and action on the world's current and emerging investment development challenges.
And I am sure we will meet again at the next World Investment Forum.
Thank you very much for your attention. This is a brief kind of history of our World Investment Forum. As you can see, it's supported and participated by a number of eminent figures in the world, the leaders, both political leaders and business leaders worldwide, and also all the investment development stakeholders participating. Allow me just say a few words about the World Investment Forum this year in October 16 to 20 here in Abu Dhabi. It is in collaboration with AIM and hosted by the government of UAE. And we will have 140 high-profile events. And this includes a number of sessions at the level of heads of states in dialogue with CEOs of global companies. We have ministerial roundtables, 7 of them, and we'll also have community-related conferences. For example, investment promotion conferences and investment treaty negotiators conference, family business network conference, stock exchange executive dialogue with market regulators conferences. So these are, there's special economic zone community conferences. So these are the community-related conferences on their own, and we put them together. In the meantime, we try to foster cross-community dialogue, policymakers with zone authorities, our business with governments, and with investment promotion agencies. So this multi-stakeholder, cross-board type of dialogues on key and emerging issues. As we are aware, now we are faced with multiple crises, particularly food, fuel, finance, fertilizers, so on and so forth. And we also have this kind of geopolitical tensions worldwide that impact on investment for sustainable development. We need to find long-term solutions to these crises, and we need to address this increasingly difficult global situation, as we know that almost every 6 months we'll have black swines that to deal with. So sustainability, resilience are the key for us to address the challenges and opportunities arising from the current situation and looking forward for longer-term solutions. We also need to address a number of tracks on issues through a number of tracks, and you will see all these tracks that we are formulating. For the program, you can visit our website. It's World Investment Forum in one word, and then you can find all the programs. We are now opening for registration, and then we'll upload the speakers, and some of the speakers are already here that we'll invite them to address the World Investment Forum. Now, without further publicity on the World Investment Forum, I wish to introduce the panel. Today we have 2 panels, and the panelists are distinguished policymakers and the business leaders here with us to give us further advice and a thought to shape our investment for development agenda at World Investment Forum. First, allow me to invite the distinguished panelists to the podium. The first panel, we have the honor to have Son Excellence Leopold Lama, Minister of Trade, Industry and SME, Guinea. Your Excellency, please. And then we have His Excellency Hossein Heiba, President, General Authority of Investment at the Free Zones, Egypt, GAFI. Please. Then we have Ms. Maria Camila Moreno, Executive Director of the Free Trade Zone Association of the Americas, that ASFA. And then we have Mr. Ignacia Colazzoli, Manager, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, Development Bank of Latin America. Welcome to the panel, to the podium. For this panel, we'll focus on the issues of investing in sustainable development goals, which is the ultimate objective of the World Investment Forum. And here, I would like to start with Her Excellency, Madame Minister of Trade, Industry and SME of Guinea. Madame Ministre, quels sont les secteurs prioritaires d'investissement liés au développement durable pour la République de Guinée? Quels sont les défis et opportunités pour l'attraction des investissements dans le secteur lié au ODD dans votre pays? Madame la Ministre, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Directeur général de la CNUSED. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Merci de nous avoir invités à ce panel. Notre pays, la Guinée, est peuplé de 13 millions d'habitants, constitué en majorité de jeunes et de femmes. Nous avons 330 km de côte maritime et nous avons d'énormes potentialités naturelles. Si nous prenons la pluviométrie, elle est très forte. Nous pouvons avoir par an 1100 à 4000 mètres cubes d'eau. Nous avons vraiment une capacité hydroélectrique de 6200 mégawatts. Nous avons des ressources en eau de surface estimées à 188 milliards de mètres cubes. Et en matière de secteurs prioritaires en lien avec les ODD, nous pouvons citer l'eau et l'électricité, comme je viens de le dire. malgré ses potentialités en matière de barrages hydroélectriques, nous avons quand même des défis. Au jour d'aujourd'hui, nous avons 3 barrages déjà réalisés. Le barrage de Swapiti, Kaleta et Garafiri. Il y a le barrage d'Amaria qui est en cours de construction. Mais nous sommes toujours confrontés aux défis liés à la desserte en électricité par manque d'infrastructures adéquates pour le transport de cette énergie. Donc, nous invitons les investisseurs à venir investir en Guinée pour qu'on soit vraiment autosuffisant dans ce domaine. Et nous, j'ai parlé de l'eau. On parle de développement durable, il faut de l'eau pour la population. Comme je le disais, nos ressources en eau de surface sont abondantes, mais nous n'avons toujours pas de l'eau dans nos robinets. Voilà aussi un secteur qui est prioritaire pour nous, pour que nous puissions, d'ici 2030, atteindre les objectifs de développement durable. Nous avons les infrastructures portuaires. Nous disposons aujourd'hui d'un port qui est performant et très compétitif. Nous avons été classés par la Banque mondiale comme 8e en Afrique et premier en Afrique de l'Ouest. Avec le jugement de bauxite de Simandou, nous avons un port en co-construction par Rio Tinto et Consortium Winning Simandou. Et dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre de ce même projet, nous envisageons la construction d'un chemin de fer de plus de 650 km qui va offrir d'opportunités aux populations à travers la création des parcs. Et nous envisageons aussi de construire un port en eau profonde à 65 km de Boké, un port en eau profonde qui va offrir des services multiformes et qui va accueillir des navires de plus de 150 000 tonnes. Nous prenons aussi le tourisme qui est un des secteurs prioritaires. Nous disposons aujourd'hui en Guinée 127 parcs. Nous avons 16 zones humides d'importance internationale. Et nous avons 4 réserves mondiales de biosphère reconnues par l'UNESCO. Tout ceci constitue des opportunités, sans parler d'ailleurs des mines. Mais nous ne pouvons pas nous inciter sur les mines, étant donné que nous sommes dans une dynamique de développement durable. Mais les mines constituent aussi d'opportunités pour pouvoir développer les infrastructures que je venais de citer, les routes, les chemins de fer, l'eau, l'électricité. Vous avez parlé des défis. Avant d'aborder les défis, je vais vous parler d'autres opportunités qui font de notre pays une destination pour les investissements. Nous avons créé une agence de promotion des investissements privés qui est chargée de faciliter, attirer et suivre les investissements dans notre pays. Pour faciliter et accélérer les procédures de création d'entreprises, nous avons mis en place un guichet de construction, de permis de construire. Nous avons aussi le guichet unique du commerce extérieur pour faciliter et accélérer les procédures douanières. Nous avons le code des investissements qui nous permet d'offrir des avantages douaniers en matière d'importation d'équipements agricoles, de matières premières et d'autres intrants. Et au jour d'aujourd'hui, les investisseurs étrangers peuvent disposer de 100% de leur capital. Et il y a aussi des facilités de rapatrier les bénéfices qui en découlent. Donc, compte tenu de tout ce que je viens de citer, nous avons quand même quelques défis. Vous voyez que notre pays n'est pas assez connu des investisseurs parce que nous manquons de données disponibles sur plusieurs plateformes d'information et nous avons un accès très limité aux outils financiers innovants. C'est pour cette raison, depuis l'avènement du CND le 5 septembre 2021, nous avons essayé de lancer le branding national, qui est un logo qui doit indiquer à chaque investisseur, à chaque pays du monde, qu'est-ce que la Guinée. Quand on parle de branding, il s'agit de la Guinée. Donc, nous invitons tous les investisseurs à venir explorer les opportunités d'investissement dans notre pays. Je vous remercie.
Oui. Merci beaucoup, Madame Ministre. You have highlighted the opportunities in the country for investment, but unfortunately, we need infrastructure investment, you need capital, and that is indeed.
J'ai parlé aussi de l'agriculture, Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Directeur, oui, Président de la Science. Nous avons aussi comme secteur prioritaire l'agriculture. Comme j'ai parlé de pluviométrie, nous avons plus de 13 millions d'hectares de terres arables avec 700 000 hectares aménageables. Donc l'agriculture constitue aussi un secteur prioritaire pour nous.
Indeed, a lot of investment opportunities, and including in agriculture and other sectors. I think, as you highlighted, transportation, infrastructure, and others are very important. So these are the challenges for investors to come in and really to build the infrastructure and to benefit from the opportunities in the country. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Madame Ministre. Now, to the President of Gavi, I have the question that Gavi has a strategy on sustainable investment. Could you kindly tell us how it is aligned and contributes to Egypt's development plans and the priority sectors such as food security, agribusiness, and industrial sectors? And what are the main challenges facing investors, particularly in SDG-related sectors, and how Gavi is supporting them?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a good opportunity to address such an important issue. Let me first give you a little bit of what Gavi is doing in terms of sustainability. We're very much proud that we were among the winners of the United Nations Investment Promotion Awards for excellence in targeting and facilitating sustainable investments in the agribusiness last year, in a project that we introduced, which was called the Canal Sugar Project. And the theme at the time is the food security issue and achieving zero hunger in the agriculture sector. So this shows that this is a top on the agenda of the national plan in Egypt to achieve sustainable development, and it's actually the SDG is an integral part of the Egypt 2030 vision to achieve sustainability and development goals for all the sectors that we are embarking on. We have developed a strategy to attract the foreign investments, foreign direct investments in priority sectors such as the agriculture and energy, and we're specifically focused on green energy in light of the results of the COP27, which was hosted by Egypt last year, and currently Egypt is chairing the COP organization. And among the development plan that we have is that we achieve high and inclusive and sustainable economic growth, trying to improve the business environment and achieve financial inclusions through different policies and incentives that we provide to the markets, as well as enhancing and pushing for complete transformation, digital transformation of the economy. And there is a national plan to do this, and it should be completed by 2025 to have the full digital e-government platform operating in Egypt, ranging from government services to banking sector services to trade services and so on. We're also focused on innovation and scientific research and to ensure the sustainability and achieving our green goals to achieve a complete green economy objectives. We're focused on renewables. We're focused on green energy like green hydrogen, brown hydrogen, and there's a national plan for that with a focus on the Suez Canal Economic Zone, which has been greatly dedicated to host such projects from water desalination to renewable energy wind farms and solar farms. Egypt hosts one of the largest, if not the largest, solar farm in the world in the southern part of Egypt next to Aswan city, and it contributes a lot in the sustainable sources of energy. We're also focused on in achieving businesses that is focused on sustainable growth and achieving food security, given the crises that we are living in due to the geopolitical issues happening in Europe, which greatly affected our food security, which induced us to focus more and more in achieving complete self-sufficiency in our food security. Also on the resilience that we have seen in the Egyptian economy in combating the COVID-19 era, and the ability of the Egyptian economy to surpass this impact also induced us to go deeper in deepening our industrial base and overcoming the supply chain bottlenecks that we experienced post-COVID, which contributed a lot in achieving our sustainable goals. Lastly, we have taken several steps to promote our investments, be it local or FDI promotions in several sectors, as I said, such as the energy, the agriculture, education, healthcare, and industry, as well as logistics and the information technology and communication sectors, all of which are important steps to launch our third generation of what we call the investment map, in which we display all our projects that we offer in the economy. Currently, projects offered by the government is being displayed in our investment map, which is investinegypt.gov.eg, which is available for local and foreign investors to explore these opportunities and work on achieving them. And we're embarking on our third version for it. And currently, we're working on including our private sector opportunities as well, to be included in this investment map to achieve our main goal of increasing private sector participation in the local economy and the national economy to reach almost 65% of the economy run by private sector projects to be achieved by the coming year, by 2025, actually. Lastly, if we're talking about the main challenges we're trying to overcome, given the turbulences we're witnessing in the world, the economy at large, we're looking into and making lots of efforts to overcome such turbulences, as I said, in terms of self-sufficiencies in the agribusiness and deepening our industrial base, and by enhancing our capital market regulations to accommodate and ease the doing business procedures in Egypt. We have been working diligently with the entrepreneurs and building a comprehensive ecosystem for entrepreneurs and trying to diversify our economy to be dependent more and more on the entrepreneurships and private sector and SMEs, and giving them more and more incentives in terms of acquiring land and granting licenses, enhancing our tax regime and digitizing all the government processes to make it more easy for the entrepreneurs and private sector to erect and construct their projects. Lastly, we're looking for attracting more FDIs and make it much easier for foreign direct investments to participate in the economic growth of Egypt. And as GAFI, we consider ourselves as the investment promotion agency of Egypt, a business partner with our local and foreign investors, and we guide them through investing in Egypt, either by helping and easing doing business procedures, incorporating companies, and aftercare of their companies, and we do this through a network of investor service centers that spread around the country, with a total of 15 different centers, fully equipped to service these investors. As a priority, and for us now, we are looking for enhancing our investment map, as I said, and it is working very well so far. We have more than 2,000 opportunities being offered in different areas.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Heba. This is really, really impressive plan, and also outstanding achievements for Egypt, as we know that Egypt is the leading investment destination in the African continent and also among the developing countries. And the investment attraction is high quality in a full range of sectors, as highlighted by you, Your Excellency. And we have seen that GAFI has been instrumental, and UNCTAD has very close collaboration with GAFI over the past years. And even me myself, I had opportunities to meet the Prime Minister and to meet the President on different occasions, and really hearing the leadership from the very top in promoting investment and in guiding the GAFI and the whole country in tracking investment into the priority areas and the sectors, as you have highlighted. And I'm sure that under your leadership, GAFI, you will carry the investment promotion of GAFI to a new height. And UNCTAD is fully behind you to support you and support your leadership and for the agency. Now let's get to special economic zones. Maria Camila, what can be the role of special economic zones in contributing to channeling investment towards the achievement of the SDGs? And what are the priority sectors for your association? And how are the zones integrating sustainability strategically, as you have been leading this special economic zone association? It's got trade zone of the Americas. So you have a lot of best practices that I heard in the past. Please share it with us.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the annual investment meeting and for UNCTAD for this very, very kind invitation. Do you hear me well? Because I've been struggling listening to the others, so I just want to make sure you hear me. Well, I have a first question to the audience to know general knowledge about free trade zones, special economic zones in our region. Do you know how many free trade zones, special economic zones we have in Latin America? Just give me a number. And in the World Investment Report done by UNCTAD, the total number around the world is 5,400. So that's the clue. Just give me a number. 1,000, not 1,000, a little bit less. 800. Minister? Yeah, 500. And in Africa? In Africa, it's half, 240 free trade zones. So what we have been working at UNCTAD, and thanks to Mr. James, is that we created the Global Alliance for Special Economic Zones. And we're very, very happy about this initiative because we are gathering all the best experiences, all the best practices regarding free trade zones as these geographical areas where investment comes, and we give all the ecosystem for the companies. So we did a checklist for the companies within the free trade zone, and we discovered that we are accomplishing 11 sustainable development goals and 19 sub-goals of these 11 sustainable development goals. I'll give you some examples that is happening on the region. We have within the free trade zone some healthcare programs, including hospitals. Also, as Mrs. Ministry was talking about all this water, electricity, public services, we have it very, very strong in our free trade zones. In Latin America, some countries are more developed than others, so depending on the country, of course, we will need it more than others. We have programs for gender equality, even working in special events for achieving a 50-50 for the workforce within the free trade zones. Something very, very important, and this you can take it as one of the best practices, is in terms of education. So what we are doing in terms of the SDG for education is that we do alliance with universities. Some of them are within the free trade zones, or some others are directly with some local universities. And what is very interesting is that now the universities are creating the curriculum for the skills that are required within the companies that are in the free trade zone. So that way we're creating skilled labor with the demand that actually companies require. So there's not like what is happening in some other areas of our countries, that we have many other skilled labor, but they don't find employment. What we can do in the free trade zones is creating this ecosystem that we are creating skilled laborers that actually are going to be employed. Also very strong, and this is one of the biggest one, and Ignacio after can complement me, is about renewable energy. Actually, we have in some free trade zones, one especially in El Salvador, which is the third producer of electricity of the whole country. So it's not only giving electricity to the companies within the free trade zone, but it's also giving electricity to communities around the free trade zone. So it's not only about the impact of the free zone, but all the ecosystem and what surrounds the free trade zone. So this briefly is what I wanted today, Mr. James, to talk about briefly about what we are doing concretely in the free trade zones in Latin America.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Maria Camila asked the question, how many zones in Africa and Latin America? And I wish also to offer the number of, at a global level, how many special economic zones that we have today. According to our statistics, there are 7,000 special economic zones of different kinds in 140 countries. 7,000 zones in 140 countries. Some countries have more than 1,000 zones, others have several hundred, and still others. Aside from 7,000 zones, there are still roughly 500 zones that are being constructed in many countries, both advanced and the least developed countries. So just to see the magnitude and to see this force for good in promoting investment for sustainable development. And we have the best practices we have heard from ASVA. Now let's get to the development banks. Ignacia, what is the role of development banks, such as the development banks of Latin America, in promoting investment in SDG-related sectors? And what are some of the priority SDGs-related sectors for the banks?
Thank you. I'm not sure, can you listen to me or not? Thank you so much for... Can you hear me now?
Please? Yes.
Great. I'm going to try to be louder. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today. I want to especially thank the Emirates, of course, Abu Dhabi, but especially AEM and your Director General, Rebecca Greenspan, for this invitation. I mean, the question is very broad, and I was thinking about how to come up, and I think it's no coincidence that we're here in the Emirates. So I'd like to start with there's an Arab proverb that says, if you want to invest in luxury for 1 year, invest in wheat. If you want to invest for a decade, invest in trees. And if you want to invest for a century, invest in people. And that's pretty much what the SDG are aiming at. But it's only a very small, limited scope by 2030. So the question is, before getting in how we're doing, it's we're already halfway through for 2030. I was calculating yesterday, there's something like 2,430 days. And the truth is that we're lagging behind. I'll give you numbers after that, in our region at least. And I want to take advantage of the fact that we're here in the Emirates. And if you look backwards, I was reading yesterday, the story of this country is quite amazing. I mean, back in 1971, 52 years ago, I mean, the gross product of this country has multiplied by 40 here in the Emirates. But it goes beyond that. Schools, for example, it went from 70 schools back in 71 to 1,200 schools nowadays. From hospitals, you had 9 hospitals, and then you multiply by 13, and so on. So I think the Emirates, unfortunately, is not something that we have in the region done in the last 50 years. We don't have such a successful story as the Emirates or as Korea, for example. So what's happening in the region? In our region, and thank you so much for putting Latin America and the Caribbean in the map. I mean, I think with Maria Camila, we're very absent today in AIM, but tomorrow we're going to be even stronger. On what's happening to us? I mean, we're just like other regions in the world, other emerging regions in the world. We need to invest up to $650 billion annually to reach those SDGs. And for example, my bank, we're doing, I mean, if you add all the banks, to be honest with you, we don't even add up to Chinese investment in the region at the moment. That's the truth. So for the banks in general, I'm going to go beyond the CAF. First thing, there's a new role. I mean, we cannot still keep on thinking of the same institution that come back from the Bretton Woods institution from Washington, D.C. The new emerging role that we see here today at the EAE in the public. We see a new voices, new southern voices that are emerging, and those voices need to be reflected in the new banks and in the new financial institutions. We have a big upcoming conference now in June in Paris about new financial instruments regarding climate. And it's precisely that they want to diversify and they want to review and reflect to nowadays world. We also have something very important at the moment, which is increasing interest rates. That's a huge impact, for example, on how we're going to achieve SDGs and the roles banks as ours have. For example, we can borrow in the market and lend to lower interest rates, just like the African Bank does in many of your countries. But we also, unfortunately, most of our loans are done in US dollars, and we do hard currencies. So we need to move to local currencies in order to reach our SDGs. We need a new scope, for example. We need to focus on what is the scope ours, and that's what the SDG is trying to set up as a framework for us. And we need to work on new instruments, as I said. We need to mobilize from the private sector. That's precisely where we're coming from. So we're trying, for example, us to leverage. We're coming from, we used to leverage, for every dollar we invested, we used to leverage half a dollar. Now we leverage more than a bit over more dollar. But we're so far away from what Addis Ababa promised, from moving from billion to trillions. We still have a long way to go ahead of us. We need to do in additionality. So the banks only need to be where there's a need to be. We should not be competing with the private sector. And then that comes to our bank. So you have new actors in the region. in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, and those are the regional development banks. You had the MDBs, and now you have these new, stronger, with more muscle, regional development banks, such as CAF, the Latin American Development Bank, which is precisely, I would say, a platform, a gateway, where we can all meet. We're eager to do more, for example, with each one of your countries, but especially with this part of the world. We're trying to engage more Latin America and the Gulf. We just had a capital increase a year ago of $7 billion. $7 billion that's been paid in. That's the equivalent of what the World Bank had in 2018, but we're only 20 member countries. We cannot compare to 193 member countries of the World Bank. So there's new actors, smaller banks, with an increasing role, with much more active, much more flexible, and much more compromised with achieving the SDGs and supporting the country's needs in order to do so. I'll come back afterwards in where we're standing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. As we can see, the role of development banks, including the Latin American development banks, playing a key role. It's instrumental for financing of long-term investment, particularly in SDG-related sectors. And the demand is so high, as you mentioned, and we need to move from billions to trillions. And this is particularly challenging when we see the current global situation. Thank you very much for highlighting these challenges. And now I think this is for the first panel, focused on the SDG sector's investment, seeking long-term solutions. We have heard the country experience and the strategies, and also regional ones. And then we now wish to give a big applause to our distinguished panelists and thanking them for offering their thoughts and experiences. Okay, thank you so much, and we move to the second panel. Yes, please.
No, yo tengo un problema de oído.
Now let's move on to the second panel, and we'll for the second panel we'll focus on the investment in the energy transition, looking at international investment trends in renewables, energy efficiency, and electrification infrastructure. Now, I have the honor to invite our distinguished panelists. First, the Honorable Minister of State for Industry, Trade, and of Nigeria, Madam Minister, please. And we also have Mr. Kerry Adler, CEO of Sky Power, and we have Ms. Marj Masharawi, CEO of Sandbox, State of Palestine, and we have Mr. Ali Eslami, CEO of AXL Electric Vehicles, Canada. So for the second panel, we'll focus on energy transition. We have the distinguished panelists here from the business and the policymakers. Let me start with the policymakers, with Honorable Minister Mariam Kadgum from Nigeria. Madam Minister, what are Nigeria's sustainable energy ambitions, and what policies and programs is it putting in place to attract investment in this sector? And what are some of the main challenges and opportunities for the investment in this sector from Nigeria and a broader African perspective, since you have a broad vision and a diverse experience in this area?
Thank you very much. Let me start by thanking you for inviting us to this panel, and good morning to all distinguished panelists and the audience. First of all, by way of context, Nigeria has a population of about 200 million. We're about going into another population census. Then we'll know our real figures. But in terms of energy, our installed capacity right now for electricity is about 11,000 megawatts, but we're just generating about 7,000. And what we require is about 33,000 megawatts. So the federal government, because we're in a federation, has set a target of achieving at least 30% of the energy requirements through renewable energy. And also to say that a little more than 56% of the population has access to electricity. Others take other forms of energy solutions. Now, one of the critical things that we've decided to do is to end gas flaring. There's a lot of gas being flared in the country from the oil-producing areas. Now, strategies or policies that we've put in place. First, we've developed a national renewable energy action plan, which outlines strategies and programs to help us deploy renewable energy techniques. We also have a portal for investors in the renewable energy sector, but also a lot of incentives for those coming in to invest in this area. And these incentives include tax holidays, VAT exemptions, custom duties, etc. Now, part of the projects that we have under the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission is to provide a guaranteed payment for renewable energy generators. So you find a situation whereby we have a lot of solar energy. Sunshine is plentiful in Africa. In Nigeria in particular, we have large rivers. We have nearly 1,000 kilometers of coastal areas where we have wind energy. The same with the extreme northern part of the country, because we're bordering Niger, and there it's a lot of almost semi-desert situation. So there's a lot of solar, wind, hydro energy. Now, some of the areas that we're trying to plug in, I would give an example. During the COVID-19, it was an opportunity for government under the National Economic Sustainability Plan to ensure that productivity continued. One of the components was to provide solar electricity, solar power to at least 5 million households. And this was informed by the fact that in Nigeria we have over 41 million MSMEs that generally depend on alternative sources of energy. So a lot of these MSMEs operate from households or, businesses that are very close to those households. Another example I would like to give to try and fill in our renewable energy gap is that in March, one of our agencies called NASENI, is a National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, did the groundbreaking for the first solar cell production facility in West Africa. It's a $325 million project. We have Chinese counterparts working with us on this project. And the idea is that if we're able to produce these solar cells, we will invariably bring down the cost of power and invariably make it more accessible to the population. Also with UNIDO, I think about 6 weeks ago, I took part in a workshop on accelerating investment in small hydropower projects. And we've done a mapping of about 200 possible sites. But one interesting thing is that We have in Taraba State, which is one of the 36 states of the country, a company called Highland Tea. Highland Tea is our own original tea manufacturing company. For about 18 years, Highland Tea had not been making profit. They were just tottering on the verge of bankruptcy. But as soon as one small hydro power project was up on stream, within a year, this company started showing profit. So just to show that the hydropower is a very good source of energy. We've also had projects in terms of energizing economies, whereby we put solar power in markets, several markets. We've also put in university campuses, starting with about 4 university campuses. But the key to all this, government provides leadership, but we also engage in public-private partnerships. So some of the challenges and opportunities for investment from Nigeria and the African perspective, I think inadequate infrastructure, because renewable energy, particularly solar, you need to invest in infrastructure, and it doesn't come cheap. Maybe later on, with economies of scale, things will come down a little bit. Financing also requires a lot of upfront investments. And even if you're looking for private investors, they need to have assurances, they need to be de-risked, because it's not every private investor that will just come and put in so much capital outlay. Also, the lack of skilled labor. To do solar and any other renewable energy, you need to train a critical mass of technicians that will be able to produce, install, and maintain. So these are some of the challenges that I see. But the opportunities abound in the whole of Africa and Nigeria in terms of solar, wind, hydropower, and there's abundant energy resources, as I said. There is a growing demand for electricity in Africa. As I said, look at us, a population of 200 million, but we can only, maybe just 50% of our population are able to access power. But mark you, even with the electricity that we have, Nigeria in particular has power sharing, energy sharing arrangements, particularly with some of our neighboring countries that are not able to produce or generate their own power. Of course, for Nigeria, large population means a large market. So there is opportunity for investors to come and reap their profits. Then, of course, we have a very large, young, and tech-savvy population. A lot of them are into technology, and with the right source of energy, productivity will pick up. Now, lastly, I think there's, yes, the issue of job creation. I think renewable energy provides us with, opportunities for employment generation and also poverty alleviation, because particularly in the rural areas where all these sources abound, I think turning to renewable energy is really the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Thank you for highlighting the challenges and opportunities in the context not only Nigeria, but also Africa. In fact, your last point related to the energy sharing, this is the trade, and according to UNCTAD latest statistics, we see that the energy trade market, when we talk about the renewables and the related sectors, will reach $2.5 trillion by 2030. It will be 5 times more than what we have today. So that is a great opportunity. Of course, you mentioned all these challenges faced by developing countries, including Nigeria: infrastructure, skills, finance, de-risking. These are the typical ones for Africa. Now let's move to the investors' perspective. Multinational companies have the renewable energy investment in over 30 countries. So, Mr. Kerry Adler, what are the opportunities in investing in the energy transition? And what has been Sky Power's experience in this respect? And what are the policy recommendations you'd like to put forward to ministers and to other policymakers, and that you think that work over the past years through your experience, the Sky Power?
I think the ministers are ready to hear it?
Yeah.
So, Your Excellency, it was great hearing your perspective and your view on what and how you see Nigeria coming forward with power. You know, I think the challenges we've seen, and you have a wonderful country. The challenges that we've seen, and I think it's universal, is it starts with, by 2050, the UN estimates 750 million people in Africa won't have basic electricity. Given we're sitting here today in 2023, knowing that, and knowing that solar energy is the lowest cost of power today, and knowing that there are trillions of dollars of capital that's available, it's becoming upon us to take the initiative to try to figure out how to match that capital to the projects. By way of example, in Kaduna State, we have a project, 100 megawatts, that we started developing about 5 years ago. And the challenge to see that project, and we're one of the pioneers in Nigeria, there was about a dozen of us, but to see that project come to light, the challenge is that the governments, the ministries of energy or the power companies have to be willing to give the necessary support. They have to be willing to stand forward and say that if the utility does not pay, the government will then pay. There is no challenge deploying renewable energy. There's no shortage of money. Banks are willing to lend around the world. We're in the DRC, we're building 1,000 megawatts, working very closely with the government of the DRC and SNEL. We're in Zambia, we're in Zimbabwe, we're in South Africa. We're in 36 countries, and it's our 20th year in business. And I can tell you that the largest impediment is not that we can't get it done, and it's not the lack of capital. The impediment is governments willing to sit down and say, let's give the necessary assurances that we require in order to give the comfort to the developer, the investor, that when they sell electricity, that they're going to get paid. And there really isn't a risk, because once you give electricity to someone, you can't take it back. We've seen that in countries around the world where people have electricity, then they don't. Egypt's a great example of a country that President Sisi gave a tremendous amount of power to his people, and power is power. That has enabled that country to grow, its economic engine to rekindle its roots. Solar is not only the lowest cost of power, it also creates more jobs than any other form of energy. And it's not the highest skilled jobs, but it's a stepping stone. Countries in Africa that are ready and willing to make the investment in taking solar, they don't need to write a check. They just need to make the decision that they want to bring critical energy to their people that deserve it. Low-cost energy. And the way that the developers like Sky Power and others around the world get paid is as they consume the energy, it's the responsibility of the state, of the utility, to collect those monies and then to pass the money on to developers to encourage further development. There is no reason that we have to sit here today wondering if in 2050 there really is going to be 750 million Africans without basic electricity. That's a sobering thought, and it's incumbent upon us today to take the initiatives that are necessary, deploy the capital, and ensure that these children have a future and a brighter future for the generations to come.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adler. This is a very strong message I see that investors given to the government. You rightly point out this is very important. As the previous speakers mentioned, we need to bring from billions to trillions, and you mentioned trillions are there. It's the question how you bring it to to the renewable sector and to Africa, the continent. That is the important challenge. According to our statistics, indeed, there are over $5 trillion of sustainable themed investment in financing there. We talk about $2.7 trillion of private equity funds, sustainable themed private equity funds. We talk about over $2 trillion of green bonds and $500 billion of social bond and mixed bonds. And what we need is really bring to the countries. And how to do that, one of the important recommendations you have is the investment guarantees and assurance from the government, the policies in place. That's indeed a key policy recommendations. And in fact, I just wish to let you know that in our World Investment Forum in October, we'll have a track on investment insurance guarantees. And one of them is a kind of summit dialogue between the heads of states and the CEOs of the global insurance companies, development banks, and other banks, commercial banks, to discuss the issues of investment insurance and investment guarantees. So I look forward to that session to follow your recommendations from our side. Now, let's move on to our distinguished panelists. Again, the business perspective, the business from a developing economy, that is March. So what are the main challenges and opportunities for starting a business and investing in an energy sector? You have excellent experience in this, in a very challenging territory. And then from the experience of your company, Sandbox, investing in the energy sector can also lead to contributing to other sectors related to sustainable development. Can you share a bit of more information about the impact of your company on SDG sectors like health and water? Yeah. So please.
Can you hear me? I'll try to speak loud. Thank you, Ali. It's a pleasure to be here today. If it means something, Mr. James, it means that we've done a quite good impact to speak about today. So my name is Majd, and I'm a Palestinian. I was born and raised in a small city called Gaza, which considered as the largest open-air prison in the world. In 2017, I was privileged to leave this prison for the first time after 8 years of trying to leave. And I went to the United States, and I started my second company, which called Sandbox. And the main reason of starting Sandbox is to provide my community that lacks access to energy. As Her Highness said, 2 million people are completely isolated from the world. We have less than 3 to 6 hours of electricity per day, which means people really cannot practice their basic needs. And that was my first challenge, how to bring energy to this prison. And I assume that most of the unprivileged communities in the world lack this access. And on the top of that, the regulations that are already occur inside these societies. So I started my company back in 2017 with my co-founder, Mohammed, who's also present here today. And we decided to bring solar technologies to this small community. I had no idea that 5 years from 2017, it will be an international company. I just wanted to help people. So we went through a longer process of trying to get our equipment inside the society. We have to go through long permits, long coordinations, and we had actually no support from the government. So it was completely against us. We were questioned, we were interrogated. I was present a couple of times, assuming that why I'm bringing this kind of equipment into this prison, what are my hidden intentions, and that was my second challenge, is to prove that we are doing this just for helping people and try to bring access for people to get solar energy. After 1 year, 9 months of pushing and pulling, we got our first prototype that we manufactured in China into Gaza. And after 5 years of operations, we were able to implement hundreds of solar panels and solar systems across the Strip, providing more than 75,000 people in Gaza with electricity. And we also worked with United Nations, European Union, providing desalination plants, schools, clinics in Gaza with solar. My third challenge was being a woman. My society is quite conservative, and it's so hard to prove that we are able and capable of doing different things. I studied engineering, which was very challenging. We were 10 women against 250 men engineers. And it was so hard for me to find capable and qualified women who I can hire in my company. So unfortunately, 15 members of our company, the full team, were only men, and I was the only woman. So it was so hard to manage a team that's all men. I was the youngest. But with the support of my family and also the international society, I was able to manage this company and make it a success. My fourth challenge was my identity, where I came from. I didn't have access to the world, being a Palestinian. I didn't have a passport. So just even coming today to Abu Dhabi, they weren't able to obtain my visa on time. It's complicated. I had to fly and find a way to get a visa to Dubai and then come here. We had no access to the world. Every place we go, we need to obtain visas, and on the top of that, we need to apply for 3 different permits to leave the Strip. So I was able and capable of leaving a couple of times with the support of so many different people who believed in the vision. And then when we left and we decided to scale up our company, we moved to Saudi Arabia. We started working with the government, providing governmental institutions with solar systems and with our technology. And it was so hard for us to obtain working visas there with the fact of where we came from. And that was our fourth challenge. So I assume I'm not the only one who's in the underprivileged community who was able to create a success and an impact in their society, but these people did not have the opportunity I had, which is having people who support them beyond the siege. I assume that there are so many talented entrepreneurs and successful women who are capable of creating a change and impact the SDGs and impact the life of millions across the world, but they don't have the access to get outside or to speak up for their people. And that's my role today, not just only to speak about the successes of our company, James, but also to deliver the voice of those people. There are so many high-level and seniors in this room, and your role when you go back to your countries and your homes to think of those talented women and men who are capable to create the change. They are the future. It's not the governments, it's not the politics, it's the people. It's the real entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your successful experience and your experience of overcoming so many challenges, and particularly as a woman entrepreneur to be so successful. That's explanatory for the rest of the world. I think my colleague Stefania, who is leading in our department on the gender in promotion of investment and women entrepreneurs, to promote your experience, sharing it with the rest of the world. And we also need to deliver your powerful message to the government in supporting women entrepreneurs, particularly investing in sustainable development. Now let's move on to Islami. Mr. Islami, this AXL electric vehicles is an area that many countries would like to move in to attract investment in this area. So what are some of the main challenges that you have encountered in the electrical vehicle sector for your investment? And what are the policy recommendations you would like to give to those policymakers who would like to go into this sector in attracting investment, particularly developing countries?
Great. First of all, thank you for annual investment meeting and UNCTAD for this invitation. I'm very pleased and honored to be here as part of the distinguished panel and my colleagues. It's an honor. What some of the challenges for electric vehicle sectors in general is people have a bit of a reservation to switch to electric vehicles, and And for the mere fact that we don't have enough charging infrastructures that are around the world. Over the last 10 to 15 years, there has been increased number of charging infrastructures that has been put in by various companies, by private sectors, public sectors. But I think the world, the countries need and could use more charging infrastructures in order to ease the people's mind in terms of switching to electric vehicles from a normal IC engines to electric vehicles. And I think if the governments can do more to help on that sector, and some of the helps that can come from providing incentives to companies that wish to work in this space, to create more infrastructure, so that people don't have the charging phobia when they want to switch to electric cars. I think it's a tremendous amount of work that can be done in this space. Not only investments in the space creates jobs, but also creates huge investments in various parts of the world. Some of the other challenges that we've seen, obviously, is generally a consumer awareness. People are. We need to do more education to educate people for the benefits of electric vehicles. Some of the, electric vehicles, because they have less components in them, they tend to break down less, and they cost less. Their maintenance are less. The servicing are less, and as a result, they are a better choice. And one thing we could do is to educate people, to tell them about the benefits of to switch to electric cars would be not only cost effective, but also it's a future. But they can contribute to reduce their carbon footprint, have a more sustainable environment, and essentially drive a very modern, a new generation of essentially technology that is on wheels. And this is one of the missions for us to be able to do globally. I think in terms of the policy, one thing that I would certainly recommend and I would suggest is countries need to adopt. Now, some are doing a great job, and some, I think, they need to do more. In terms of providing grants, providing to people that would want to buy electric cars, providing perhaps then these grants or subsidies or essentially incentives can come by way of tax incentive. It could come by way of rebates, and this will encourage more people to switch to electric vehicles. Also, I think there should be more investment in terms of R&D. I think as the technology grows over time, I think we will see new technology that will have a longer battery range. We will have less charging times, and if there are more investments in the R&D in these sectors, so if the policies are made to encourage companies and have funds that will be available to them to do more R&Ds, I think we can see a very big increase in the space, and we'll have an easier adoption to electrical cars. And I think the overall benefits is to reduce our carbon footprint, save our planet, have essentially contribute. All of us need to do our contribution, do our part, and I think electric vehicles is one of the biggest areas that contribute to that environmental sustainability.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think you mentioned the policies, including education, creating awareness of vehicles to consumers, but also the support from the government. You mentioned the incentives in that. So that's for the market. I'm just wondering, if Madam Minister is here, if she wants to attract you to invest in Nigeria on the e-vehicle production, what would you like that the government to do?
I think there's a number of things that government can do. I believe for one of them to encourage companies like us to come in, put up an assembling line, putting up a manufacturing line. essentially, we are a private companies, and like so many other companies, obviously, we have a certain budget and a certain marketing plan to be able to enter, global scale. One of their visions is to become one of the big global players, and with respect to the products that we've developed, we are set to do that. I think countries, for example, like Nigeria, I think it's a great example where we can essentially come in, where we'll be interested to come in and set up manufacturing lines, set up assembly lines, and providing government support, having a government support, I think it would be crucial. It can vary range from assistance in terms of the funding, permits, essentially practical solutions that will allow companies like us to come in and start basically investing in these countries, and knowing that the support of the government is there. The government is also helping in terms of the infrastructure, the grid infrastructure, the charging infrastructure. So it's hand in hand. So essentially, one company cannot do it alone. It has to be a partnership with the government and private and public sector together.
Thank you for the elaboration. I think that would be very useful also for the policymakers from the floor. Now, for the solar energy, when Madam Minister talked about sharing of energy, and that means cross-border, particularly for energy in one location and shared with the neighborhood.
The advantage of solar energy is like Lego blocks. You can build 5 megawatts blocks, 10 megawatt blocks in the various villages, right, or cities. The nice thing about solar energy is it uses low voltage lines, so it doesn't need big transmission lines. So if you build 5 megawatts in one town or city or village, it's consumed right there. And it doesn't require such large infrastructure as a hydro-nuclear or gas cogen facility. That's the beauty of solar. It's cheap, it's easy to build, it's not even a construction project. So if the government wants to really, if a government wants to really roll out solar energy and power their people, it doesn't have to buy thousands of megawatts of solar. It could buy a couple hundred megawatts built in 5 megawatt tranches or 10 megawatts. We call them solar blocks. You call them sun boxes. These are solar boxes. Okay. So each one of us has to do our part. And I think it really starts with the government making a decision that they want to give power to their people, because they understand that power not only creates better education, health care, but also gives people an opportunity to be the best that they can be and to achieve what they're intended to achieve, which is build a family, a future, and be able to contribute to society.
Please. Thank you so much. Madam Minister, if I may, you have heard the investors, the business recommendations for the policymakers, for government. What would be your reaction to their policy recommendations?
Thank you very much. I think the recommendations are very much in order. If I start with Ali, to say that already we have Honda assembling electric vehicles in Nigeria, and we have an automotive policy that's about going to the federal cabinet and of course to the National Assembly, whereby we've taken into consideration issues raised by those in the auto industry. And the case with Nigeria is that we import a lot of vehicles, both brand new and second-hand vehicles. And we're trying to put in place a system whereby there is a kind of credit system that just as you go and get a mortgage to buy a house, you could get a mortgage at a very low interest rate to buy a car, so that we discourage the importation of these second-hand vehicles that have been that cannot normally ply the routes in Europe and other countries. So already with Honda we've started, but it's a large market, so we're looking for other partners that would come in. And then, of course, the recommendations from Kerry are, well taken. We have a large mass metering program because the challenge is in some of the cities, there's also this concept of electricity coming from government previously, and it looks like it's free. So people don't feel that obligation. And then you also discover that in some parts of the cities where actually there is no effective metering. So we've gone into a mass national metering program, because unless you get the meters, government will not be able to pay back whatever energy has been produced. So I think that will be a way forward. But I think the points raised by both of them are well taken. Thank you.
Thank you so much, distinguished panelists. Thank you so much, honorable ministers and the investors, and also for the previous panel, Madam Minister, and the policymakers and the investors. This is a great opportunity for us to share experience, to discuss the key emerging challenges, opportunities that were extremely helpful for us to finalize our agenda for the World Investment Forum, will taking place in October 16 to 20. We have now 140 high-profile events that will take place in this premises, and we're really looking forward to your participation, your contribution, and you as the speakers, and use the opportunity for exchange, even through bilateral means. I wish to thank all of you, the distinguished panelists, the participants, and to my colleagues, Stephania, organizing this fantastic panels. And in case you have any questions related to the World Investment Forum, please go to her, and you have her contacts on the program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.